Welcome to tonight's Finance and Governance Committee. We're just going to have a change round of just what's on the agenda this evening, just so that the grants and sponsorship policy and changes can come first, just so Councillor Amber Packer-Hughes can go through that with us, so just so that we're foreseeing that. But we'll move on to agenda item number 1. And are there any apologies? I think Ed normally comes a little bit late, doesn't he? So hopefully we'll see him shortly. Any declarations of interest that we need to be aware of that aren't disclosed normally? So on to the minutes of the meeting that we held just over a month ago. Seems like a lifetime actually, on the 16th of December, which was a busy meeting. Any comments, questions, corrections, anything that anyone wants to add? Everyone happy for me to sign the minutes? Yep, I need a proposer. Rob proposing, Bev signing, so I'll do that in a minute. So if we move on to the
Sorry, can we just, so you've had a proposer and a seconder, can you just
vote? Sorry, I didn't vote, so sorry. It's because there's not many more people just have got to put their hands up. All those in favour of me signing the minutes? Perfect. Anyone against? Perfect. So we'll move on to the forward plan. Any questions or comments or anything that anyone wants to raise on the forward plan? Got a bit of a busy meeting coming up in March again. Looks like a busy one. Any questions? Comments? We just need to note the forward plan, don't we? But still vote on it that we've noted it. So I'll propose that one and need a seconder. Paul's going to second. All those in favour of the forward plan? We are moving swiftly, so that Amber, we're moving on to yourself. So we discussed this at the last meeting and asked for just grants to have another review and have a discussion. So come back to us. So I don't know whether Amber, you want to talk first?
I think Will's going to do a brief introduction, then I will follow on, if that's okay, Chair.
Go for it, Will.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, the report concerns the adoption of the revised grants and sponsorship policy. The specific changes to the policy are as noted in the report in terms of the amalgamation, applicants clearly stating that they will benefit people living within the boundary of the town council, etc. I won't go into all of them. I believe the main sticking point was the reduction of the venue grant application from £30 down to 15. We did reach out to all councillors to put their comment in on this. Only one councillor got that, which was Councillor Packer-Hughes, who I will refer to now to provide her comments on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I wrote this in haste at the time, so I will expand slightly at the end. But the comments that I submitted are that I fully support the new CAC figure of £15,000 for the venue grants. This ensures that funding can benefit a minimum of 6 organisations, that's a minimum of 6, notwithstanding the ability to exceed the cap in genuinely emergency cases. Previous years have seen funds go to a small number of organisations, typically the same 3 or 4, and their reliance on this is contrary to the existing policy requirement to not request funds for the same purpose in consecutive years. While Taunton Deane Borough Council, Somerset Western Taunton, Somerset County Council, Somerset Council and their various incarnations provided relatively generous core funding to venues in the past, I believe we must recognise that we are not a district or county or unitary council, and we don't have the finances to match that level of support as much as we would love to. I believe that greater good can be achieved for a greater number of residents by supporting a larger number of small venues while still offering access to fair and equitable funding to those larger organisations we've helped in the past. I believe that if councillors wish to provide ongoing core funding to any venue in the future, as we have done with Taunton Theatre Association, Prizewood Library and Citizens Advice Somerset, that it should be considered on a case-by-case basis, possibly by full council, and should fall outside the scope of the grants committee and this policy. I hope that's clear to everybody. If you want me to expand on anything, or if you've got any questions, I would love to take part in any debates that I'm allowed to.
So what we'll do is we'll open it up. I may come back to you, Amber, as chair, as we go through it. I'm quite relaxed about that. I think recalling the meeting prior to Christmas, again, a lifetime ago, it really was around that venue grant that was kind of the real issue that we wanted to have more understanding of. I'll bring in Caro in a second. I guess my question is, and it has been clarified around maybe some of our, more well-used places like the museum. We could look at something alternative for that because we know of the added value that they bring. I think for me is, have we reached out to the organisations to let them know that this is changing ahead of this, or drawn their attention to the fact that we're doing this change? I appreciate that we always say it's just a one-year grant, so they have to come forward. However, I do know that within the sector, whilst they are flexible and able to deal with that, some do look to think that it is on a rolling basis amongst multiple different funding opportunities. So I just didn't know what communications we've had from those that had already received it.
If you want to speak to me.
Yeah, so prior to the grants committee, which this report first went to, we did reach out to KICIC, the Museum of Somerset, as well as letting a future applicant on the Wireman Centre know that this change was going to take place, and allowed them to comment on it. So they were aware that this was going to be proposed.
Could I add to that as well, that when we were agreeing the venue grants last time, particularly for KICIC, and I know there were other applicants in the room, we did point out that this wasn't going to be year-on-year funding, and they couldn't expect to have necessarily the same level of support in the following years. That was made quite clear to them at the point of the previous award.
Carrie.
And this would all be very well if we'd had a chance, if we had like months and months to mitigate the impact of it. But I think I do feel there will be an impact if the policy stays as is written. I think there is an issue with the upper level. I think it's too low. I think it fetters our discretion. And I also think, just rereading the policy, it's very much now exclusively tailored towards like, oh, a quick capital project or a project, not actually the original purpose, which was enabling venues that support incredible activity to the community just to kind of keep on going. So there's not enough provision for just if you needed to get over a hump and you needed some extra revenue funding because you were applying for some other big grants and we wouldn't hear for 6 to 9 months or whatever. So I think I've kind of got two issues with it. And just for information, the last time around, there were 6 beneficiaries of the venues grant. There were 2 at 30, 2 at 20, 2 at 10. And if you think about what venues we've got in the town, yes, there's key cultural venues apart from the brew house that provide a huge range of activities for young people, old people in general, from classes to artist studios to all sorts of things. And then we've got sports facilities, we've got village halls, church halls. It's quite a wide range. And you never know exactly what's going to come forward for the venues grant. I couldn't have predicted what we had on the thing for last year. That was kind of a interesting, surprising. We did some good stuff with the venue grant, I thought, last time. But it is a fact that let's take the museum. I could take KICIC. KICIC is in fact 2 venues. So when we gave funding for them last year, 20 grand, that we were in fact keeping 2 key venues, the Arts Hub, which is over there, and KICIC going. So that was a lot of music comedy events. It was a lot of young people's provision that is underpinned by having the availability of those 2 spaces. So that's by the by. In terms of the museum, and I think there will be an effect if because they're still not in a great position financially. Neither, I don't think, is the museum. I think the museum still faces a really tough time ahead. The next 12 to 18 months could be crucial. They may be in a different place after the True Valley Hoard, but that is a big capital project. We have contributed to that, but there still remains the issue of actually revenue funding for the day-to-day stuff. So I'm worried that you know, we're going to do something now that we might not be able to mitigate. We might be able to mitigate it through other bits of a budget or other ways, but we might not. And the might not worries me a lot. I don't want us to do something that has unintended consequences. So like, for example, it would be quite a big thing for the museum to have to close the next day or to have to potentially charge entry. That's a big thing, and I don't want that sort of decision to be forced on them because we didn't, you know, we were a bit sort of gung-ho and just said, oh, let's just, you know, halve the cap. The cap isn't, you know, you could have somebody applying for 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, and the job of the grants committee is to look at all of those projects and say, right, which ones do we want to fund? And if you want to fund all of them, then you have to distribute the resources. So you're not going to give somebody necessarily the 30 grand. You're going to actually say, well, with the money, this is what we think is the best divvying up of the resources for the projects that we want to support. And within that, you're going to be looking at what other sources of funding they may have, whether they can do part of it that year with X amount of funding, and maybe then they could come back the next year. I don't know what's going to come forward. I think it's a fair assumption that the museum was going to put in another request. And also Kick/Slash, the Arts Hub. I think that's fairly predictable. But we just heard what Wyvern, you're probably going to get a real mix of things, and you're probably going to be able to fund and do something really good with that money. But I just don't, in case there's somebody that needs extra, I don't want us to have fettered our discretion. And I'm worried that how I would interpret exceptional circumstances may not be the same as other people. The other slight thing I think I've mentioned already is I think there's maybe rereading it. I thought almost a bigger issue could even be it's very much tailored to, or do a bit of work on the building or do a project, but it might be revenue support that's needed. So those are my reservations. Otherwise I've got, you know, there's nothing else I'm concerned about specifically in the policy, but those are quite big ones.
Will and Amber, I made some notes during what Carrie was saying, and some of it I think you may have already answered, but I'd just like to seek some clarity. I think there was a mention around short notice of this change. However, I think you said in the last grants committee, we make it clear year on year. So I'm right in my understanding with that one.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
And it's all on the forms and stuff that they're very made known that it's not year on year revenue.
It's also in the policy that they can't apply for the same thing year on year. That is actually within the existing policy.
I think I read in the policy when I was skimming through that, again, this picks up one of the points, that if there's emergency issues, and those could be many, but it shouldn't be that you, I just want to, I guess, clarify the question. What if there's an emergency situation that you could come to us and we would have a look and see what we can do? I presume, however, that we wouldn't expect like a end of year suddenly, oh my gosh, we are struggling with money. We would welcome conversations throughout the year and ensure that people's accounts and everything are kept up to date with us throughout.
That's correct. I would hope that any organisation would do that, Will.
Yeah, so the policy states that, well, in exceptional circumstances, the council may award above the figure of £15,000. It also states that then grants should not be considered a recurring source of funding, and successive application for any grant must clearly demonstrates the steps taken to reduce dependence on assistance from the council in the current and future years. So in terms of emergency funding, we have the ability to take that on in terms of awarding the above the figure in what would be an exceptional circumstance.
And maybe a question for the clerk, we could use other mechanisms throughout the council if there was some situation that we felt politically that there were funds available, if there was a really, I don't know, say someone had a roof partly fall in, or I don't know, something that would really be catastrophic to the cultural fabric of this town, we could look to see what other levers we could pull to help them.
Yeah, so just in relation to obviously the other funding opportunity that you provided, so money was taken out of the cultural budget, so it's all very well as long as you've got a budget pot that you've got, can identify the money to come from.
And so again,
yeah, there is £20,000 next year in the cultural budget after we reduced it to cover the brewhouse.
and Amber?
I just a point of clarity as well, that I think that if an organisation requires recurring money every year, that by its very definition is not exceptional. That is something that we need to have a long conversation about, possibly an SLA, rather than resort to go through the grants channel, which I would absolutely encourage that we look at that where we possibly can.
If you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chair. No, and that was as Will's explanation. That's how I interpret it as well, about the fact in exceptional circumstances the council can award this figure. So there is that mechanism there to look at things. And I think, you know, I support Amber in the fact that we're not a district council, we're not a large council. Everything we do has to be, the money and the funds we have are preset. So if we have to look at larger sums of money, that involves looking at raising preceptic things, all those different things. I think the way the policy is now is fairer. We were lucky in the fact that we did have funds in the cultural development to support the theatre, but obviously going forwards it may be that we, as I say, this is a safer mechanism to look at individual applications on a fairer across the whole town. So I support this.
Any other? Paul?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I generally support the idea of giving smaller amounts to more organisations, so it's spread across more. I hear Councillor Ellis's points very clearly. It's sort of stated that that's the sort of objective, to help more venues. I know no one can look into the future, but if Amber could, do we have a sense that there are venues out there that are going to use these smaller 15 grand pots? Because it's one thing changing the policy, but if there's no one going to use it, that's one thing to consider. And also I saw from Gail's email that Coach applied for 30,000 yesterday and were granted 19,000. So I don't know if anybody, so I presume under the new scheme that would have been capped at 15,000. So what difference would that make? What difference is that? Did the members of the Coach say that 4 grand will mean that we can do X, Y and Z, or was it not clear?
So I'll come back on that, because yeah, that they asked for £30,000. Yeah. They had 2 projects they wanted to do. They're both pretty critical. We originally had £11,000 left in the venue grant budget, and it just happened that because it was year end and we had managed to successfully award money to all the other applicants that evening, there were some returned funds. So we were able to exceed what would have been the £50,000 cap, but up to £19,000, because there were no other applicants at that stage, and it seemed the best use of the money rather than going back into general funds. I know of 5 organisations at least that will be applying for this grant next year, and I haven't reached out to others that would be similarly interested at the moment, but I know at least 5 that will be looking at applying for this.
And on that note, are we going to advertise this more?
Yes, so we will use all available comms channels at the town council, and with regards to those organisations, if Amber could share them with me, then we can approach them directly and give them notice of when our applications are open, when they close, and what they have to do in order to apply for it.
Because remind me, they were going to do these all in one go in April, is that right? So that pretty much you won't end up with that leftover bit that you had yesterday for Coach.
The intention is to have an initial round, because this is what happened last year, that the pot was essentially exhausted in one round. But if there is any remainder left over, we can look at applications through the year if there happens to be any left over. But I fully anticipate that pot being exhausted in one evening, realistically.
Yeah.
The 11,000 was actually from the previous year, not this year, that was reclaimed because the project didn't go ahead. So it had all been exhausted in the April meeting.
That really shows that we're doing our scrutiny and auditing then as well. So when we get it back, that actually is another testament to the work that's happening.
Am I right in thinking that actually we awarded the money back to the same organisation that we'd received it from for a different project?
Yeah,
But yeah, due process was gone through, that it had, the original project hadn't actually gone ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Is everybody okay with that point? Now, I've got another point on the policy to bring up, if that's okay.
Mhm.
But if anybody wants to discuss that further, or okay, in a minute. I think Will could answer this for me, please. The ward members initiative scheme now has come back to the grants policy, or the grants committee to award, rather than from community in place. And on the application process 9.3.1, it says there is a initiative scheme resident suggestion form. I wasn't aware of that or hadn't seen it. Is it on the Taunton website, or is it something that we would give as a ward member to an applicant?
So yeah, that's already live and on the website. I can share the link for you after this meeting so that you have it to distribute to your residents if you would like.
Yes, we will. That would be good. I'm very passionate about this, and I've done several, and there's a few there in early stages. What if we could send this to some interested parties? I think that would help me anyway. But thanks, Will.
Any other questions on policy at all? Ed, welcome. Did you have any questions at all on it?
No.
So I'm comfortable now that we've heard from both Amber and Will to proceed with the policy as we've received it. I think it was quite good to see the process work last meeting where we said we weren't happy. It's gone back, discussions, come forward again, and now we've got that further information. So I'm happy to propose. Do I have a seconder? I'll take Bev. So if we proceed to the vote, all those in favour of the policy? 4. All those against? Noting carry, because Ed, you missed part of the debate, can't vote. So that's passed. Perfect. Okay. Thanks for coming along tonight, Amber.
You think you sent that?
So we're going to jump back round the agenda that we've got, and we'll go to the financial update.
thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, it's only been a month since we had our last meeting, so there's only 1 month's worth of financial surveillance show movements from those overarching accounts for compliance, grounds maintenance, etc. The committee agreed last month. There are no excesses shown on the income and expenditure account that need. Appendix 4 shows the payments made in December.
So what we'll do, like normal, is just go through each section by section if people have got questions. So we're hopefully not jumping all around the place. I know I mentioned it briefly, I think in a meeting I've had with you, Gail, about whether or not moving forward we need to move these meetings slightly, looking at next year's diary to give you and the wonderful team a bit of a chance to do the previous month's accounts, or it just, or the end of year when we're looking at like later on in the year, just to give that kind of breather. I don't know if that's helpful when we look at setting the diary. Yeah. So just so everyone's aware of that, if you want to sit on finance governance, it may shunt a little bit next year. Hopefully you all do want to come back. So on to the budget. Any questions at all? That section? No. Onto the environments that have happened. Any questions on any of those? We are okay. On to the payments that we've made in December. Long list normally.
In 1 month.
Any questions on any of those? Because again, it's just about us being really open and transparent. But we don't expect to put Gail on the spot for every single amount on there. But go for it, Paul.
Well, just because we were bereft of questions, I thought, please don't do that, councillor. Please don't just start and say. But it's not so much the individual ones in December. I just wanted to remind myself about where we spend money. I assume we try to spend it in the Taunton Town Council area if possible, obviously dependent on best value, etc.
Yes, absolutely. Our procurement process that we follow is first and foremost aimed at Taunton businesses.
Thank you.
Any further questions on our spend there? Anything else on our finances that are showing for December? No. So I'm happy to note and propose to note. Anyone like to second? John Paul's going to second that one, and all those in favour? Is carried. So we're going on to the events and fitness activity on council land policy.
Chair, you hear me okay? Yes, so this is the events and fitness activity on council land policy. So to recommend the adoption of the newly created events policy. So as a bit of background, the council is committed to supporting a diverse range of events and fitness activities across the parish, recognising that their vital role in fostering community cohesion, promoting health and wellbeing and stimulating the local economy. To ensure these benefits are realised, a comprehensive events and fitness activity on council land policy has been developed. The policy sets out clear principles for authorising and managing events in partnership with key stakeholders, aims to make events accessible, inclusive and beneficial for all whilst meeting health and safety requirements. The policy aligns with the council's corporate plan in that it supports an engaged community, a vibrant culture and a council that delivers. In terms of the finance and resource implications, there's no direct financial implications associated with adopting the policy. However, hosting more events in open spaces may lead to additional maintenance costs. Oversight of event bookings to ensure compliance with this policy will be managed by the Town Culture and Events Officer as part of their normal duties, and the council's open spaces team will continue to play a key role in ensuring that parks and open spaces are safe and suitable for public use before and after events. In terms of risks associated with event facilitation, there's no high risks identified. There's a couple of moderate ones, such as extra maintenance costs and liability for cancellations, risk of organiser or non-compliance with legislation, complaints from disruption or poor event management, and reliance on external agencies for major events, which may cause delays in organisation of the event. And then looking at the timescale, so once the event and fitness activity on council land policy is approved through the relevant committees, it will come into immediate effect.
Thank you. So I'll open this up to questions. Caro.
First question is going to be becoming to be a regular question. Have we consulted friends groups on this? Because I know Friends of Richmond organise a number of really great community activities. They're very, very good at it. But it's just to ensure that we've got the sort of proportionality right. And with that, as well, have we all consulted any other event organisers? That's a question. This is sort of a question you comment. I organise what you might call informal events. So we have a home education group, parent-led, it's just us families. It has the minimum of bureaucracy and policies and whatever so that we can actually function. We're just an unincorporated voluntary association. But we have been known just to go, hey, let's do football in the park. And we just create a little Facebook event and we say, you know, so-and-so is going to bring the balls, I'm going to bring this. We just rock up and we just assess, you know, should we play, you know, in between the goals, or if somebody else was doing it, we'd shift somewhere else because it's a big park. We just kind of on the day, whatever. And if it was sunny, it'd be great. If it was absolutely tipping down, we'd say, hey, guys, we're going to take a rain check on this. Caroline, as will always have a little mini risk assessment, but it will be highly proportional to what we're actually doing, because it's not like kids being dropped, it's families just coming together. But there will be a first aid kit in my bag. There will be, you know, a basic things about what could go, you know, very, very simple, very, very simple, very practical. So I'm looking at this thinking, oh my dear God, you know, if you wanted me to do an event safety management plan with crowd management, drug policy, emergency control, site plans, I'm like, I'm going to just say, do you know what? We can't do this anymore, guys. We do a sports day as well, which is, again, is very, very informal. You just rock up at between certain time. Again, Caroline has done a sort of very down to earth risk management thing. Caroline has the first aid. Caroline has drinks. Caroline's told everybody to put their sun hats on. Caroline has, you know, sunscreen in case somebody's forgotten their sunscreen. If it was too hot, we wouldn't bother doing it. If it's been heavy rain, I might cancel it as well or postpone it. So you might say we're going to do it on the Monday, we end up doing it on the Thursday, or we end up doing it on the following Monday. I'm just worried, how does this, do I even need to, for something that I even need to say, oh, this is an event, and go through, you know, I can send you what you, well, very welcome to my little notes, my little risk assessment. I mean, it's just like really simple. And then I've got to, you know, there's a long list. If it's a small event, it seems to be the same required documents as if it's a dirty great big one for 10,000 people. And I'm thinking, is there any way we could sort of, you know, make some allowance? Is there going to be an element of proportionality in there when it's something very simple? Often in French Fair, you will see people just say, oh, well, I need to raise money because we're going on a trip with the Scouts to do this, help somebody in some far-flung corner of the world, and they're going to go and sell their cakes and stuff like that. It's not, you know, for an hour or two. Or you might have like somebody just say, oh, well, meet us in the park and we'll celebrate little Johnny's birthday or whatever. It's those sort of very informal things. I'm wondering if they are captured, because if they are captured, then that they might, that's a barrier for me. It'd be literally like, oh my gosh, where are we going to do our, sports day, where we're going to do stuff like that. And there was one other thing I picked up just from looking at the web pages as they are now. When it talks about public liability insurance, it says on the web page, I took a screenshot of it, says you must have public liability insurance cover limit of 10 million. Most small organisations, like so mine with our insurance, it's in public liability, normally it's up to 5 million. I really can't anticipate how a bunch of kids and parents could do damage of up to 5 million ever, but anyway, we have that, that's quite standard. And it's when you do like a big festival, so if you were to do a big festival in a park, you would probably get specific public liability insurance up to 10 million for that specific festival. But if you're just a little community group, and even actually you might not, I know a lot of home ed groups aren't like ours. We've got constitution, we've got this policy, that policy, the other policy, because we occasionally do apply for funding, and we're slightly a bit different. But some groups won't have any. They won't have any insurance. They won't have any this. But if they're doing something very, very low risk, like meeting in the park to sketch the trees or something, I don't know. It's like, where do we, when is it an event, and when is it that you need to know about? I think I might have even said once about, oh, by the way, I'm having a sports day. I'm assuming I don't need to fill anything in, but I'm just letting you know that that's what's happening. I might even have checked so there wasn't anything else on that day, so that we weren't gonna, you know, that just seems sensible to me. So it's that sort of about, you know, are we okay that we're sure that the event organisers of different sorts will be happy with this, friends groups, are they happy with it? And then this thing about the small, really grassrootsy things, is there going to be a way to enable those in a very proportionate way so that they can feel they can still happen in the parks? Sorry, that's to me.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, starting with the friends of groups. So they definitely were taken into consideration when writing this. I was working quite closely with my colleague to come up with the fees and charges documents of what we're going to be charging for using our council land for events and activities. So that's a slightly separate document. So fees aren't in this document, but just to sort of say that they're different. There's definitely some more work that we could do with contacting the friends of groups just to get a bit of their input into this. The policy was already there. This is just sort of a revised version of the policy. So it's something that's been in effect for a while, but it has a little bit more detail in there to capture those, as you were saying, that not potentially, well, all those different types of activities and events, rather than just classifying everything as an event. And then obviously it becomes quite difficult when you've got these sort of low maintenance events, as it were. So yeah, I can definitely reach out to more friends of groups and added for other councils, but I can re-review that and see if that's sufficient, because as I said, I don't want it to be off-putting to smaller groups who might not have that coverage. I think one thing to note is that although the policy, you know, it's very long, it's comprehensive, we don't want it to be off-putting to groups. We want it to be as accessible as possible. And I realise this sort of document potentially isn't, but that's sort of where the Town Culture and Events Officer job would come in, to sort of break down those barriers, have those conversations and sort of give the support needed to facilitate those events.
Sorry, can we just ask Gail to clarify in regards to the 10 million? I think it's an insurance confirmation that we need to have from the different organisations.
Well, our own is 10 million, and that's what's the standard generally for events on our land.
How do you want to come back in an argument?
So basically, do we have to apply? I mean, I want, is it, when is an event that has to go through this process? Because if what you're saying is true, then that wipes out a load of grassroots stuff that is basically what you're saying. We're wiped out. We can't I mean, I might just do it anyway and see if I get into trouble, but that I don't really like operating like that. I'd rather just let somebody know you're having a little informal thingy.
I'm sure as a councillor you're meant to operate like that, Caro, in the nicest way under Nolan principles, but yeah, we'll go with it.
Well, no, I mean, so that basically means unless you have public liability insurance of a 10 cover limit of 10 million, you can't hold an event in the park. Is that even like a little get together? When is it? And when is an event that
of the event for the policy? I think overall the policy is there to sort of give us more control of what happens on council land, because there's a little bit of lack of oversight in certain areas. So we just want to make sure that what's happening on our land we're aware of, because obviously that feeds into sort of like the health and safety element, and also helps us identify ways which we can support the local community. If we know these groups are happening, maybe there's something there that we can actually support with as well.
Yeah, my question for you is I guess the 10 million is really high. Can we speak to our insurers around whether that is something that they prescribe that we need, or is there a way that we could drop that? I do think that people who use our parks or facilities that aren't family and are going there as an organised event should probably let us know.
I was just about to ask though, sorry, Chair, where the 10 million is mentioned in the policy. It just says the event organiser must have valid public liability insurance. And I know that we have had events with less than £10 million worth of public liability insurance. Our own. That.
Okay. Harry, do you want to come in while Helen's having a look?
Yeah, I don't think it is in the policy, but I had a little look on the website and it's definitely on the website. It says if you plan to hold an event in one of our parks, you will need public liability insurance minimum of 10 million.
Sure, we've seen applications come in through the community in place team that have less public liability insurance than that.
Yeah, small community organisations are not going to have public liability for that. It's going to, we're just little tiddlers, and it's 5 million is standard. I think Go Creates is 5 million, unless it was for a festival where they would do 10 million. But this is like kind of worrying, because we're going to basically the definition that we've used of a gathering, I'm going to have to do like a whole bunch of formal documents and yada yada. I don't mind letting people know, but it's the same requirement for me doing it, you know, having a few families in a park, you know, having a bit of a kickabout potentially, unless we just do it, you know, we just informally arrange that we all just happen to be in the park at the same time. I don't know. As for a big event, in terms of the
policy different to you though. I think for stag events, it is a lot of paperwork. For community groups, it's not a lot of paperwork. It is a little bit of paperwork or a little bit of notification, but it isn't the same for how I've interpreted this very in my world. I guess I find it easy to understand is that if you're a community group, it's like small, keeping us up to date, and there is some bits that we need to know, because that was in the square bit, so like the grid earlier on. But if you're going to come and hold say the Fake Festival moved from Long Run Meadow and moved on to Hamilton Park as an example, where there's loads of people and there's drink being sold and movement of lorries to bring in the kit, and you've got maybe a highways closure. That's why you have SAGs, because that's what's used to do kind of the carnival stuff, isn't it? Because it's all about wider safety. So I think there is like a different tiering structure as to what, but I may have got a different view. I don't know, Helen, if
So yeah, agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I've just looked in the policy and yes, no reference to the 10 million. It just says it's the organiser's responsibility to ensure that all insurance policies provide adequate cover for the specific activities and risks associated. So I guess there's a piece of work there, just making sure that that insurance covers what they say it's going to cover. So yeah, if it was a smaller group event activity, providing that 5 million covered that, then I see no problem with that. But
and I assume that for organisations like Harry's that regularly book, you do a copy and paste pretty much with a minimal update of the previous stuff submitted, and they'd fall under that extra small, is it, size of. I guess my only query on that one is whether we want DVS certificates or to be put on required documents for all events if there's activities involving under the age of 16. Because we put it for sports pitch bookings, but not for other events. That would be that's just what I picked up. Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, if you were to do that for us, I think I did have DVS from something or some other thing, but I think it would be inappropriate because we have parents with the children. It's not a drop off, so I wouldn't like that to become a requirement because it wouldn't be appropriate in all the circumstances. It's fine if you're doing a drop off and you are dumping your kid and saying going off and doing a thing, then yes, absolutely. Could we take the 10 million reference off the website, because that just scared the what's it out of me. I thought, okay, well that's fine.
Yeah, can we just check it? What page is it you're looking at? Because I just looked and I can just see it under pitch bookings as opposed to.
No, it's this here.
just take
What?
on it.
Oh.
Just while we're looking at
Okay,
that, there's
we double check on that and make sure, check with the insurance company, yes, make sure that the policies cross reference with what's on the website. We'll pick that up.
and just, I guess the website or the policy, obviously they need to correspond, but it's having the relevant liability insurance.
Of course, yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
that's the right word, isn't it? The right, relevant. Harry.
Sorry, me again. Is there anything we can put in? I mean, I have read this thoroughly, but I might have missed it. So I was looking at all the sort of documents and stuff, but is there any sort of thing that we can do to sort of reassure if you're a small community group or not even a constituted group that, you know, if you're doing something, a small activity, contact Helen to talk it through and see if you know what level of information, something that just nods to the fact that we recognise that there are different, you know, we take a proportionate approach. It's both sort of the size and also the sort of nature of the thing.
Yeah, happy to sort of add something like that in. It's something that's gone through my brain as well, and something that I want to work with perhaps the comms team with. In again, this is not like the most accessible document, and it can be off-putting for those smaller groups. And maybe there's a bit of work there with creating some sort of communications material, whether that's through the website or something similar, where it sort of targets those smaller groups and sort of encourages them to host events and activities on council land rather than just saying read this big document. But yeah, we can definitely maybe tweak some of the wording in here to facilitate that as well.
Any other questions? Cool.
Yeah, it's just about like I know Carol's concerns about the small events. I'm just thinking about the larger events and the commercial events, and I might have missed it, but obviously we're going to put certain parameters in space and licensing, etc., etc. It's our land. So if it was happening on a Saturday, it says that someone's got to go down and inspect it before and after. So if that's a weekend, does it say somewhere that we expect the commercial outlet to reimburse officer time? Because before at some meeting we were talking about charities having to pay something for officers' time. if I remember rightly, and I don't know if I see it in here, where you could have the fake festival in one of our parks and a couple of officers have to go down on a Saturday and we're having to pay for that. Or the
Yeah.
public is, sorry.
Yeah, good question. As it currently is, the members of the operations team who do the inspections would go the last working day. So if it was an event on a Saturday or Sunday, they'd do their site check on a Friday, and then they'd check it again on the Monday after the event. That's just currently how it runs.
And then all the bits around everything like money wise and cost we've built up to do the fees and charges, haven't we? And that will constantly be evolving as we kind of analyse the data from previous years about what it cost us to help do those events.
Yeah, just on a slightly different note, I'm not sure if it's relevant. So I'm pleased to see the short notice thing, because there are times where things are going on in the country, people want to gather to. So where does that, so if I wanted to organise a protest about something and we all decided to gather in Victoria Park and then walk uptown, I know the police have input in that. And also, would we likely, if it was political, so we're all political, right? And there's certain protests that I would like not to happen in the park because I disagree, but there's also some protests that I might turn up to in the park because I agree. So are we likely to throw out any type of political process for safety? You know, if people are allowed to congregate, I think, or if it's our land, are they not?
It's on page 15.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
sorry, Fred.
That's okay. I think that's how I've interpreted page 15. The applications may be refused if the event promotes political campaigns or controversial issues that could harm community relations or illegal or offensive. So I guess that's our discretion around the impact on the community, and it allows it at the time.
Yeah, I'd just say that the country's quite divided at the moment, so some people might not see their protests as being detrimental to the public while others would. So I think we would be safer saying no, full stop, probably, but anyway. Sorry, Dad, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I was going to say we actually had this experience last summer where I think a protest was planned to start at one of our parks and then walk through town and end in another of our parks. We were very much guided by the police and the community safety team at Somerset Council in relation to that. I don't think we made moves to try and ban them from the space, the public open space, but given we've got a policy now, hopefully in place in the future, certainly we're forewarned, we could have those conversations.
Did you have a question?
Yes, just going on that point of quick events, would that cover also things like sporting, like if there's a World Cup final or something and someone set up a screen in one of our parks, or at least plan to, is that would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, with something like that, I would hope that there would be a little bit of notice for something like that. But to be honest, this is a policy that we kind of want to obviously adopt and go by. But I have had experiences in the past where people have come to me relatively last minute with, you know, we want to put on this activity, and we always do our best to facilitate those where we can. This is here to sort of, you know, help guide us, of course, but also give us that sort of upfront time to get all the documents ready. But you know, depending on capacity and stuff like that, we always strive to help communities and put on events, even if it falls within the time frame. It's just there to sort of safeguard us against if someone came to us a week before an event and then we won't be able to, didn't have enough time to facilitate it. Obviously we've got something to fall back on, but yeah, always trying to, you know, support events and activities as much as possible where we can.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Just looking for a proposer for this one. I've got Paul and a seconder. Rob. All those in favour of policy? All those against? And absent?
I'm abstaining just because what's in front of me, I'm a bit worried about. And I know Helen's going to do some more work on it, but
Thank you. Thank you for your work on that, Helen. We're now going to, is it the financial resilience monitoring? So it's because we're jumping all over the place. I'm going back now. So looking at Q3, October to December.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, members. Yeah, so before you is the third quarter financial resilience update. Not an awful lot to report this time round. As members can see, we've received our SIL payment of just over 46,000, which makes us, I think we've received for the year about 75,000. And we've obviously set out there is the interest rate, interest we have received on our investments. In respect of grants, we've got the Abbey Harris Muriel Fund, which we weren't successful on in our application, which was for the wall on Bridge Street and Wood Street. Unfortunately, we weren't successful on that one. We're still pending a grant application with National Lottery Awards for All for our wildlife strategy, which is up to 20,000. There are a number of other grants which we are continue to look at. Obviously, parks and play equipment, that will be a lottery, a Reaching Communities lottery grant, but until the company we've appointed has done the consultation, it's a bit difficult for us to apply for that. And obviously, there's some other ones set out there. And obviously, Section 106 monies is there, especially the Coal Orchard one, which we'll then be looking to access for the play parks project overall. Other than that, quite happy to take some questions.
I've just got a couple of questions, Angela, just on the was on the parks and play equipment. When does that timing end in relation to the lottery money? Because I know
it's up to us really. It's the fund. Reaching Communities Fund is, I'm not saying it's never ending, but at the end of the day, you can apply at any point. When we spoke to them, they're quite clear though that we have to meet their strategic objectives, and that is really around. So that's why we've had to reduce the number of parks we're going to apply for, because they're looking for so the most deprived areas. But no, there is no time limit on that one at the moment. So.
And the team therefore got it in hand then to look at, I guess, is it Hamilton and
it's Hamilton and Lingford.
Lingford, is it?
I've got a feeling we've just had the deprivation date of 25, so there is a potential for a third park as well. Whether we can argue the case or not, I think it probably look to be remains to be seen. But there is a potential to certainly put some money in. Whether we're successful. Obviously is another matter, but at the end of the day, there is the opportunity for us to apply for some money. The only problem I think with lottery is it's quite a long drawn out process. So that's the only issue.
And then I guess it's, I don't know if it's for yourself or Gail, I had a letter in relation to my children's savings accounts telling me that interest rate was going down. They can't touch it till they're 18 anyway, but I was like, oh, okay. So have we done modelling now, I guess, with that interest rate change to see what I know it's only, I think it's 0.25%, is it? What that looks like for our investments, because obviously we've done well, just seeing what that does.
Yes, and that's when I presented the budget that I highlighted we would leave £65,000 as well, interest, because it's been paid twice a year.
Swings away lights, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Angela, can I ask a question on the Section 106 monies?
Yep.
On the land at Killam's, is rather a large amount potentially. There's two parts really. When is that likely to be? And then second part is perhaps our unitary councils might be able to answer something, but there seems to be a consideration for buildings 1 and 2 of the old bus station. I get asked a lot of questions from members of the public. Why is it stalled? Why hasn't it got effect? Got ahead? And there's a statement there saying that SC has rejected the application. Further consideration being given as to the next steps. Any comments on that? There's two questions.
Not much, Councillor Isaacs. Unfortunately, they have come to a decision based on their their policy. We've gone back and challenged them on what we perceive to be our interpretation of the policy, and we are waiting for a further update as to whether or not they think who's right, as to whether or not we're entitled to the money. So I think there's still some work to do. The town clerk has also become involved in it as well. So yeah, so it's a case of waiting to see how many strings we can pull, really.
I know this update, so I'll pass over to Donna.
Yeah, so it has been re-looked at and it has been challenged as to the decision and how it was made, and we've had a response back recently, a couple of days ago, to say that actually that they're standing by their decision and therefore they will not be awarding us the Section 106 money that we requested, which is unfortunate, but we are looking at different opportunities for buildings 1 and 2, whether or not there's any money within the funds from Somerset Council as to if that can be transferred to the town council at the moment. So those conversations have, but today actually, after today, the Section 106.
And I guess in very simple terms for other people, Section 106 is to be used on a community hall venue. Within 1 point so many miles as the crow flies from the Killam's estate. And so I guess what the Section 106, when they're determining it at Somerset Council, is they're saying what's planned for building 1 and 2 probably doesn't quite sit to meet the requirements of a true community hall space. That's my simple interpretation of it. Compared to when you compare, we've got brilliant plans for building 1 and 2, but what some community halls are seen like compared to others within the town is slightly different to what is planned there. And there are maybe others within the vicinity of Killam's or something else that can come out of that. Bev.
You've just answered my question, thank you.
That's me in very simple terms. It's very far more technical than my explanation, but that's my understanding. Any other questions on financial resilience? Sorry.
Sorry, I was distracted momentarily by Floodline issuing because I'm signed up to it, so I got completely so we have I just heard right that it's quite a lot of money that we were going for Section 106 to do the bus station, and we haven't got it, and I'm like, okay, go and lie down in a darkened room or go and scream and bang head against wall, because that was quite significant, wasn't it? So that's like
It's up to £292,000.
Yeah.
But there might be, so what's happening is there's discussion between Somerset Council and us as to what other funds are available within for the transport hub and what can be done with that money. So it's not, all hope is not lost. Ed.
Thank you. At the full council, we talked about the council doing things in a bit more commercial ways to try and generate money, on top of our revenues from taxes. Would you be able to give us a few examples of maybe things coming up in the future that we might be pursuing, if there is any?
Well, certainly if buildings 1 and 2 at the bus station or transport hub, which we want to call it, come off, then there are opportunities for us to let some units there. They are going to be quite difficult to let. We've spoken to our agent Alder King to seek some advice from a commercial aspect around that, and taking into consideration what's in the town, such as the collar factory, the exchange in opposite County Hall. But there are opportunities through there to support that. That wouldn't necessarily come through the limited company. The limited company would be looking at probably the more external contracts, which things like our open spaces and our parks, something like that. But this would just be about generating income, but it will be a difficult site to generate income on, I would imagine.
Okay.
Based on the advice we've been given anyway.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the paper? I'm happy to propose it. Seconder. Rob, all those in favour? Perfect, that's carried. Thank you for your work on that. Angela, and now we're going to the street trader policy.
Yeah, thank you, members. This is very much the first edition, and I've called it edition 1 of the street traders policy. As members will know, when we agreed to take it on, the sort of like there's been two projects sort of like come from us taking on street traders. One obviously is the electricity, which we've heard about, and I believe there's another report going to Thompson Assets on the 29th. And the second project, which is about permit and process. So this edition 1 of the policy before you tonight is really about creating some of those foundation stones that we'll need post-April to start moving on and look at things like the fees and the processes that we'll need to work to. So, you know, it's starting to look at the development of the decision-making criteria, the process about agreeing an application form. Obviously, an application, any application will need to go to the planning committee. The terms and conditions, street trade agreements, and the basis on which the council to leave. Obviously, we're looking at, we've included some wording around the prepayment electricity solution. So this is very much, as I said, very much a foundation stone. It's not the only addition. There will be subsequent additions to this one before you tonight. So obviously things like the fee will be included. We'll have much more detail about electricity and how that works on a day-to-day basis, and we'll probably tweak things like some of the decision-making criteria and the terms and conditions. But basically, it just gives us that foundation in which to then start moving project 2 forward, and we can start paralleling a little bit with the work going on around the electricity sockets and things like that. So happy to take any questions.
I have a couple of questions. First one, I'll try and do it in order of the paper, is I'm wondering if we need to be clear that it will be 10 working days to make an initial determination. That's subject to full and complete application form, is it? Or so?
Yes, it would be.
We've got all of the details, because I don't want it to be that someone goes, we sent that to you, and therefore I missed the next committee because, and they try and say it was because of something we did, when actually we didn't have all the paperwork, because there might be times that it's really tight to that next committee date for determination.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to do, and obviously this is sort of once we've got the committee dates, is actually publicise the committee date and actually when the application will be heard. So if they know that even if they apply in April, but the committee is until the end of May, we may make an initial determination, but they're not going to have. Do you know what I mean? We're going to try and make sure that we're transparent as we can around in respect of committee dates and things like that, and when agreements will be made.
And at 4.7, we say that a permit will be for a 12-month period. Did we discuss? I dropped it, but that we were going to maybe do shorter permits as well for seasonal.
Yeah, I haven't put that in here yet. That there will be ones for day, week, because of the Christmas cabins.
Yes.
Yeah, so we will have different periods in here. But I thought, well, if I put that in here now, it's confusing because there's no fee attached to it at the moment.
Yeah.
So what we will do is this is in essence this is in essence for the
standard norm,
street traders, like Spud Shack and things like that. This is just the standard thing, but we will have different periods. We'll have day, week, month.
Have we had any input yet from the existing street traders in the policy? So this is us seeing it first.
This is us sort of creating those foundations, because it's difficult to go out and have a conversation with them without having some idea of what members are happy with. As I said, we will, and I caveat, we will come back to you probably with some amendments, and we'll make sure that it's quite clear what the amendments are from this edition to edition 2 or 3, depending on how far down the line we get. But yes.
Falling back on my knowledge from Somerset Council days and running markets, we previously had to deal with, not in Taunton, same people selling similar things and competition. Are we going to allow, I guess it's commercialisation, or like literally the market to play out by itself? Or are we saying that you can only have 2 kebab shops, or 1 kebab shop and 1 flower shop? Or is it that actually we allow 2 ice cream brands? Because if I prefer Miss Smith's ice creams, or then my husband prefer Miss Roberts' ice creams, that's the market playing it out, isn't it? So I'm just trying to wonder, because I previously had to deal with disputes when the same person rocked up next to or nearby another person selling the same wares.
To be truthful, I don't think we've really had that conversation yet. I don't think we really at that point yet, because I don't think we. I think we've probably not got into the detail yet because we've been so focused on delivering the electricity project. I don't think we've really got into the detail of that yet. And I think our terms and conditions do sort of like hint at it, but I don't think they're very more specific, which is why I said that we'll probably update them. But I do think it's a consideration that we need to have, and we'll make sure that everybody understands that this is, you know, if we're going to have 2 ice cream vans, are we happy with that? Do you know what I mean? I really don't think we've had that thinking yet at the moment.
I know it's like different markets. It might be worth speaking to Johnny at Somerset, just because where he oversaw markets, he knows some of that history and just how it plays out. Cool.
Yeah, you asked kind of the question I was going to ask. Excuse me. And the other section of the criteria, it says the goods that the trader is wanting to sell complements the current offer already in place. And I know from planning training, I don't think as a planning committee we can say, oh, you've already got 3 of these, so we're going to stop yours just because you've come along later. So I am keen to make sure, because you're going to get 2 things. You're going to get the trader who's already selling the thing complaining, going, why did you give them when they're saying the same? But I still think we need to be careful about denying new people the opportunity to compete. We may face some public criticism if we're not careful. We've got like 5 street traders selling the same thing. But if I was coming along with a new business idea and I was turned down because someone was always doing it, I'd say I can do it better, like your ice cream analogy. So it is in the policy there, the goods that traders want to sell complements the current offer already in place. And it may be worth chatting about this, the traders themselves, because, you know, if you take, I won't advertise.
No, I do think at the end of the day, I think
I was going to plug someone there.
I do think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, this is still, as I said, we've been very much focused on delivering the electricity solution because that is the most prominent thing that we need to do. I do think there is an opportunity to be taken with Somerset Council to actually understand some of the more nuances, such as we've discussed. So, you know, so if you have applications come in for 2 ice cream vans, you know, how do you deal with them? You know, what do you do? Some of the more practical things that they would have seen since they've been dealing with street trader licenses and things like that, and sort of take some of that information and some of that guidance from them. But as I said, because the permits and processes are really under Project 2, some of that stuff hasn't really come to the fore. So what we've seen tonight is very much, as I said, very much the foundations, very much those starting blocks that we need, and then we'll build on them as we move forward.
I think for me, it's also worth noting, I think whether we need to think about what we want as a council, and I'll bring Rob in a second, is around, I am neutral around, or maybe I'm positive, around allowing businesses as street traders, where we also may have bricks and mortars that sell the same or similar. I think it allows people to start up, and there are people that have gone on their journeys from taking street traders and market stalls that then do end up in shops. I would say New Look started off as that or something, like as some of like the really big players, but that we have had, I think even some of the food vans try that. I think started off that did some street trading, went into a unit and then came back to street trading. So I just think it is, for me, something that allows startups, economies to grow, flourish and test the market. And again, it's around both having their parts in our town economy.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think it, but as I said, I do think we've probably got quite a lot to learn. You know, and you know, Christmas cabins is a good example of, you know, let's learn from Somerset Council and understand how things work and how they make some of the decisions as to whether or not a street trader gets a licence, and then we can reflect that better in the policy and reflect that better as a council. But I do agree with you. I think we probably, once electricity is out of the way, because that has been the main focus, let's be honest with you, let's look at the more, you know, the broader, what this means in the broader terms for the council overall.
Thank you, Angela. I would just like to say well done on this draft of this new policy. We're very well done. It just brings up their questions when we read through it, so well done on that. I was looking at point 6, the changes of ownership or offer. I would think that all stall holders or these traders do have a written contract from us, yes?
They'll have a permit, yes. So they'll have a 12-month permit, which will include the terms and conditions of us allowing of us giving them that permit. So yes, they'll have an actual permit, as well as I believe we're going to aim for something sticky they can stick in the window.
Yeah, what I was looking, so these conditions or these policy bits would be in their permit somewhere, because it's if a trader should sell their business to another third party, it's saying that the license will be terminated and the new trader has to then seek a new license. So would that be in the sale contract or
what, between the two traders? I don't know. I would say we could probably ensure that if it's a trader to trader sale, that we can sort of advise that in actual fact, if trader A is going to sell it to trader B, that they need to cancel the permit with us as a council. If trader B wants a permit, then they would need to apply that. Whether we can build that into the sale process, I don't know. I wouldn't like to say, but at the end of the day, we would probably, the new trader would need to understand the terms and conditions in which they're coming into.
Yeah. I just think it would be a pitfall if somebody sold a business, somebody bought it and hadn't had the license, and then so it's just that knowledge of knowing go through a process, isn't it? But well done again for putting all that together. Thank you.
Sorry, Joe, I'm just asking the same questions as you have, but I do think it's really important that when people get the sort of okay for the permit, that they're absolutely clear that this has got to go to planning. Because I feel there's some strange people on the planning committee. So sometimes what I don't want to get is caught between like the officers saying one thing and then the members of the planning committee spotting some issue or being, I think the applicant needs to be absolutely clear that the permit being granted doesn't mean they're home and dry.
No. And to be honest with you, my idea is, and let's be honest with you, I don't know if this will work yet, but the theory and practice is always a good thing, isn't it? So the theory is that at the end of the day, we'll have an application come in, we'll make an initial assessment to make sure we've got everything in place, we've got everything we need, that if there's any potential conflict with terms, anything else, that we can resolve those before it comes to committee. So what should be presented to committee is a well-rounded case that sets out exactly what they're going to do, how they're meeting all our decision-making criteria, and then the committee can then make their decision accordingly.
Thank you, Chair. I think this probably just tags on a little bit to what you were saying, because you brought up a similar point, Fed, about that dialogue with the street traders and actually talking to them. And I just wondered, when we actually get to the point where it's ready to go, if there'd be sort of an in-depth sort of communication comms around that, so that they've got a point of contact.
Yeah, we'll certainly, once we get to a point where we start working on project 2, I believe there's going to be some comms going out shortly anyway around the electricity, because obviously we're now moving forward with that. But certainly post-April, once we're in the process to start looking at it from a permit perspective, then we'll bring them all together. Either up here informally, or if they want to do it online, whatever's easier to do.
That's great, thanks.
Any further questions? So I'm comfortable proposing this. This is our first edition, first draft, seeing how we get on, and as ever, can keep reviewing. So I'm happy to propose. Seconded, Paul? All those in favour? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
So on to the next item on the agenda, which is CCTV and dash cam policy and use of access to CCTV policy. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Evening all. This report asks members to approve 2 policies that are coming together. So you've got the CCTV and dash cam policy and guidance, and then the use of access to CCTV recordings policy. So this is in relation to the cameras that the council uses on our own site. So it's not anything to do with the public cameras that we've got some responsibility for. This is only in our vehicles and our locations, including this one. And the dashcam policy was previously a standalone policy and been approved by our personnel committee, but it's now been brought into this wider policy just so that there's one less, and they're fairly similar. Document covers access to footage and the need for it to be controlled and logged and also auditable, and it also seeks to address any potential misuse. And the emphasis on this throughout has been transparency and protecting individual rights. The recommendations are to note the inclusion of the existing dashcam policy and to approve both policies for immediate implementation. I am happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I have a question, and it might be that I missed it. Do we have anything explicit in here around not sharing CCTV on our own social media pages as a council? I was just thinking about this because you see petrol stations, as an example, sharing on their CCTV pages when people drive off, because they think that obviously, I think it does have a positive effect, hopefully them getting their money back. I'm wondering what our stance is on a council. Say someone came and did damage to some of our parks or something, and we caught it on CCTV. Would we use the police as our channel and not use our own channel?
That's a good question. I think it's vaguely covered in the access policy. It isn't as specific as mentioned in social media, but I can look to include that in there if that's something that.
I was just checking that because where I admin Taunton Matters, we make it clear that we won't allow CCTV of children at all. If they look in any shape or form, children, we don't allow that. So it's just little things like that that crop up, and I'm just wondering whether we need to be explicit of what we will do where we have our own active social media. Any questions, comments? Ed?
Thank you. With the CCTV, is it sort of a web-based portal, or is it kind of a local access program? Just thinking about with the auditing, would when someone accesses it, does the recording of their access go straight into a cloud database recording, or is that something someone would have to manually write down?
That's a really good question. So it's all cloud-based, and all the user activity is tracked. So myself and other members of SLT that have got access to the camera, if we were to review it, it's timestamped with who's reviewed it when using what device. So it records any activity.
Come back in, Ed.
Yes, and if you do need to download it to take, send to the police or whoever, is there a specific place it's saved, or is it saved into like a downloads folder and then sent off?
That's a good question. I think in the policy I've made mention to a specific location, but I will double check. And I think we have to record on the data access request form. So if someone wants to access a particular recording, it will also record there where the data is stored, but I will double check that it's in there. I'm sure from memory that it is, but I'll make sure.
Can we charge for access by insurance companies when they want to use our CCTV as part of a claim that we're not involved in?
I don't know the answer to that
Or
one.
at least recover our costs for our time, because that what we're about to do isn't quick. I don't know, it might not be that we might not, if I have that example. I was just thinking, I know how much time it can take to do the CCTV work, and what it then, all the demands from both law enforcement and insurers, like especially in car parks. We've only got that park, haven't we? But it's just, it's not cheap. So I think you can charge for insurance companies to access or to have it. I'm just wondering, it's something to think about for the future, where I was thinking if others want to use our CCTV for their own third party claim, I don't know.
I'm not-
Sorry, Donna.
I was going to say, I'm not so sure it would work, because obviously this is more for, so this is for like CCTV in this room, for CCTV in the depot. It's
Yeah.
not for any CCTV.
We haven't got external, have we, or any?
That's managed under.
We haven't got our own in our car park, have we? Because we use others. Okay.
No, so it's only for our own facilities, so it would probably be in-house. I couldn't.
But there might be occasions, I'm just thinking about the dash cams might record as they're out and about accidents that happen or criminal damage. I can look into it, I'll find out.
Yeah, it just made me think about the fact that we may be requested from a third party where it's to do with us, and it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just to pick up on where is this CCTV? So you mentioned here, so it's like when you come in through that door, so we've got CCTV there and through there as well. Just in the sort of public area, and then presumably so at the depot outside and inside as well, is it?
Yeah.
And then pavilions, in any of the pavilions do we have?
We've got it in none of the.
Right,
pavilions
so
at
it's
the
just
moment.
here and
And the
depot in terms of the CCTV. Right.
Cool.
Thank you. This is quite a bit around retention and stuff. Are we able to set our own retention policy, or have we checked under the GDPR or whatever that are we bound to keep dash cam footage, etc., for a certain time, or can we decide how long we retain stuff for? And I presume dash cams, as I know them, sorry, I don't drive, they only show you what's going on. They don't feed back how fast perhaps one of our vans was going. It's purely a visual thing. And has any thought been given to like rear dash cam footage for when people may drive into the back of one of our vans?
Thank you. I'm going to take them one at a time if that's all right. So the retention, we do have a limited scope. So GDPR gives best practice around it, and we've gone with the
12 weeks.
Retention period, which is in our document retention policy. The visuals for the dash cams, exactly as you said, so they're just recording. They're not. We haven't gone for cameras that have got ambient listening or any that take readings from driving at the time, like the ones that are linked to the black boxes. And the last question was rear dash cameras. So yeah, where the vehicle's got capability to have one on the back. So we've got some of our vans that don't have windows at the back, and we didn't want to exteriorly mount them because they'll just get damaged. But in the majority of cases, we've tried to make sure that they're front and rear facing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go for it.
Thank you. Bryony, well done again. Really good report, very well put together. Just so I'm clear in my mind, we cover through the town a lot of CCTV cameras. This is purely for the office and the depot. So none of the external cameras or other things. I wonder if that could be probably made a bit clearer on there, rather than a policy for, you know, the general CCTV around the town. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely happy to take that.
And
Is the footage requestable by freedom of information? Like, can the public request footage?
Yes, I believe that it is. I think the things that make it not eligible might be the content. If there was individuals who were identifiable through visual characteristics, we could refuse it. But it would, I think, like a lot of FOIs, it would depend on the content rather than the fact that it's a video. So like a document, it would depend what was depicted in it that would mean if it fell inside the umbrella of FOI or not.
Okay.
Just thinking a bit further on those sort of topics. Is there any need to put anything in about AI now? AI is everywhere at the minute, and would it be, or should it be, a line or two? AI is not used in any of this at all, because you do see some videos and things, and they look real, but they're not. They're really sort of fictitious.
You mean in relation to manipulation of recordings that we've made? I think it would fall under where we've talked about the possibility for people like misusing the devices. I think it would fall under that umbrella generally of misuse. No, I hadn't thought about that. That is very Black Mirror. I hadn't gone to that degree.
So, sorry, I did read it this afternoon. I've been skimming through it now, but just so we will only view dash cam footage if somebody, let me just use the example. If somebody says we saw one of your van drivers having a kip in a lay-by here at this time, will we be using it for HR purposes like that, or is it purely based on accidents, etc., etc.?
So in our original policy, which is the dashcam one, which has now been absorbed by this, when it went to personnel originally for sign off, they were quite keen that the cab cameras aren't facing in, they're only facing out. So in the scenario where it was that one exactly, someone having a sleep, it's unlikely that you would find the evidence on a camera that was only facing out, but it depends what the allegations were. If it was I think we'd judge it on its merits each case, depending on what was added.
Okay, totally agree that we shouldn't have them in the cat facing in, but I just, if we were to find out that one of our vans was in a location that we didn't think it should be.
We have trackers. No, we don't have trackers, no.
Maybe I'll just, leave it. It's fine.
So
We don't have trackers because. Different style.
Do the staff know that they might get
called up for something.
Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to propose. Ed seconding. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you for that, Bryony.
Thank you.
Am I over to you again for the IT procurement?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I just noticed I'm really on my own over here now. Should have put deodorant on this morning. Thank you. So this one is in relation to, this is to inform members that we have now commenced a formal procurement exercise for the council's IT services in line with financial regulations and best value requirements. So our current provider, which is Cloudy IT, have been in place on a rolling annual contract inherited from the shadow council period. And there was no formal tender was originally undertaken, and that contract is now due for review. So since 2023 June time, the council has spent around, on average, 102,000 per year on IT services. That does include our managed IT support, cybersecurity, service desk support, cloud infrastructure, all of the equipment, etc. that we've got in this room. That tender is currently live and it does close today. The estimated contract value is around 300,000 for 4 years, and that would be from April this year. That is a reduction because we're not anticipating to have to cover the cost of this sort of infrastructure again. So the recommendation is that the committee notes the tender process and that a volunteer is appointed from the committee to take part in evaluating those submissions as per our financial regulations. I will say I'm not a technical expert, so I am happy to take any questions, but if I don't know the answer, I will seek to find out. Thank you.
You volunteering?
No. I propose somebody else. Thank you, Bryony. Sector or 0.8 timescale, it says that closed today, the 20th of January. So have we had any tenders in?
So unfortunately our procurement officer is not around today, so I haven't been able to check in with her. I'm led to believe that there's been a lot of interest, but I haven't had access to them just yet, so I don't know.
We can't open any tenders until after it's closed anyway. Yeah. Is that it?
My quick question, and then I'll bring in Bev, is obviously it might not necessarily be about this, it might be something Gail knows as well, is the fact that obviously we've reduced what we think the contract value is, but have we got a reserve for the constant upgrade of our IT equipment? Because that's what I was thinking, and that's what I'm looking for, because whilst these cameras are brilliant and they're picking that way at the moment, which is even better, they have been around for coming up to nearly 2 years, probably a year and a half, but how long we then need to keep them for before you then need the next round of technology? So yeah, it's just checking whether actually, I guess some of the others may give us ideas about what we want to do with regards to our spend. We've also got an election in 18 months, and then new equipment and everything else that's needed for councillors and everything then as people change over. So it's just thinking about those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly right. So we've had to go. I'm happy to talk. Do you want to talk?
We added to the budget this year £20,000 for a sinking fund for next year, and then obviously there's the annual spend as well. But we will continue to do that to make sure we have the money.
Yeah, that was based on the lifetime span of, I think we've allowed 5 years for the devices as new, 4 years for the mobile phones possibly, and that was our business optimization officer looked into when they start to come out of iOS support and things like that, so that your updates start slowing down at that point. So that seems to be quite a realistic time frame to look at turnaround for them.
I only say that because we've seen in the news, that council's got to spend £5 million, but we're doing the same on a smaller scale because it's all about ensuring that our teams have equipment so that they can go and do their job properly, that we can host meetings, and a lot of it around cyber security and having the latest patches and all those other technical terms that Ed probably knows far more than I, but it just means that we are resilient and safe and secure and able to perform well. So this is us doing it on a smaller scale than what we've seen for 5 million there. So Bev.
Now I was just going to bring up a similar thing about equipment and wondering what the lifespan is of these wonderful devices. Because I think iPads, they're great, but I think
they don't keep them.
They don't, and they need updating all the time. And for me personally, I find them difficult because if you want to look at documents, if you want to edit documents, when you're used to working with laptops all the time, it's really, really difficult to do. So it was just sort of wondering about their lifespan, and obviously when you're looking forward, thinking about new equipment, whether it's actually replacing these with either something that's a lot more robust and a laptop or whatever Councillor Smith-Roberts has got.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rob and then Ed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would agree with Bev what she just said. I think we should probably, if there is an upgrade in hardware in the future, we should get a choice of the device that we probably could have. A question for Bryony, if you know this is just thinking here with these, when we do get the tenders opened up tomorrow. I presume if we change the supplier, there'd be no initial costs for doing that. They would take on the contract. Would they have done assessments and things of what we have to what they think we might need, if that makes sense?
Is that the new supplier?
Yes.
Yeah. I think on the find a tender part, because it's at the moment we are cost based, so we don't pay a flat fee to Cloudy, we pay for laptops that we want or support calls that we make, etc. So I think whoever would be the new supplier to come in would likely want to have a conversation with us about whether we keep that support at that level or if we step into more of a structured pricing plan. I just realised as well, when you've reminded me by saying that, I don't think I specifically wrote it in the report, but our current provider has said that they're happy to give a full handover and that they will, hold the ship tight until if that's not with them, until we're safely on board with whoever it is that is going to be our new provider.
Brilliant. That's good. I was going to ask that as a business continuity question. I was just wondering what would happen if things did quite not go to plan. Ed and then Paul?
Yes, I'd like to put myself as a volunteer for that procurement service.
Well done.
Thank you.
You know what's occurring.
Yes.
There's 25 applicants.
Yeah.
And with the encouragements, I think the lifespan generally is about 8 years before they start, not being really supported anymore.
Cool.
Yeah, I think you anticipated my question because I have seen at work where people lose tenders and then they just completely walk away, and that can cause real problems. And also, do we have the expertise internally to know that we can be sure that Cloudy no longer have access to anything they shouldn't have once they've left. We need the new supplier to make sure that Cloudy have gone and they can't, not that you'd probably take some disgruntled member of staff at Cloudy to start causing problems, but it's just things like that to remember, because we've built in, because of the problems we had with a supplier before, leaving in a hissy because they didn't win the tender. The person coming in had a huge problem trying to regain services, but very good. Cloudy said they won't do that.
Carrie?
Yeah, just on the environmental side of things, because like, I mean, I hope AI will be binned because the environmental impact, it's awful, absolutely awful. And I just think it leads to sort of sloppiness and rubbish. But even like just like kit, a normal kit, you know, stuff like this. I noticed in the report it says there's a 5% weighting for environmental practice. So I don't know what we expect. What kind of things are we hoping to kind of like move towards? I mean, it's stuff about the hardware and how often you have to replace it. I mean, like if you have like a, I don't really like laptops. I've never really got on with laptops. At home, I have an old PC, and by God, it is old. And you can just get it gets, you know, somebody in to kind of fiddle around with it and update it, and it's lasted donkey's years. I don't even know how old the damn thing is, and it's kind of still chugging on. Whereas these, the smaller the gadget, if it's like a laptop or this, it's just like built-in obsolescence within a matter of years. I don't know how far we can push with this. I don't know what you're hoping that, you know, your ideal supplier will say, oh, we can do this. Da, da, da. I mean, even actually sending emails and stuff has an environmental footprint. You know, you don't think about it, but actually IT does have quite a big impact on this. So I do think that's really important. So I'd be very interested when they, you know, when we do select one, to hear what their practices are going to be and how they're going to help us get to net zero, which we're committed to.
I don't know. I'm happy to come back if there was. Yes, I think it will be proposed to see what they propose, basically. So I think you've nailed it in terms of the best device is the one that you have for the longest, that you're not having to replace, that doesn't end up in landfill. So a lot of it is going to be choices around the kit and the longevity of the kit. But we're also open to seeing what else can be suggested. I know quite a few places now will offer dark screen service support. So, and I'm not a tech expert, but there's something in this, Ed, you're nodding, so you might know. There's something in this having the screen dark that saves a certain amount of energy usage within it. And that's one thing that we're expecting to see on self-service portals, is measures like that. Hopefully that helps.
My screen's dark because it's easier on my eyes.
Just one point of observation, if you look around the room, all the officers have lovely laptops and the council of members have iPads.
That's a shit though.
I just come back in.
I'm not an officer, I just use another device.
But just in relation to the iPads, there was at Shadow Council, it was taken to them when I was employed as to what the preference was, whether it was laptops or iPads. And the Shadow Council did decide that it was to purchase iPads for all of the members. So there was a democratic decision, and that's why we've got iPads. So we haven't just said, right, you can have iPads and we'll have laptops. It did, yeah,
Isn't it?
it's a decision that was made by the Shadow Committee at the time. But that's not to say, I think there was a conversation today about whether or not actually members, if they've got their own personal laptops, I think within our IT policy, you can use or access the decisions and all those things. So we can put that in place for you. If you did have a personal laptop that you wanted to use, we can get it set up for you. So I know that, like yourself, you're using it as well. We can do that. So there was reasoning behind it.
Thank you, Tom. I have that set up on mine at home.
Yeah, but if anybody else does have a laptop that they would prefer to use, I'm sure there is provision in the IT policy that it can be set up so you can access your stuff through that.
Also nice to keep things separate though.
Any other questions? I'm happy. Oh, Ed, you have volunteered? I don't think we had any other takers because there was a whole chair, but just want to double check. Okay, so are you proposing?
I'm proposing that.
Like,
I'll second it.
so
All in favour?
we're all happy that we're doing the policy or the procurement as it goes, and with Ed being our representative. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you for volunteering. I thought I was going to have to like. Yes.
Too late to change your mind. Thank you.
So on to next item on our agenda. So we're going over, we've got to do the access to information bit, don't I, that I need to read? Is it on here, is it?
No, that's not in it.
Well, that's,
No, it's on here.
oh yeah, sorry, there you go. I was looking for paper. So during discussions of the following items, which is agenda item 13, it may be necessary to pass this following resolution, which is to exclude the press and public, having reflected on the presumption in favour of openness. This decision may be required because consideration of this matter in public may disclose information falling within one of the descriptions of exempt information in Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. The committee will need to decide whether in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweigh the public interest in disclosing the information. So the recommendation that we're going for is that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business, agenda item 13, on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. I'm happy to propose that. Bev is seconding. All those in favour? That's unanimous. So it's not all of it though that is excluded, is it? Because some of the item is available publicly, or we need to go completely and stop recording now. So, Marcus.
I think if you wanted to delve into the detail of the lease, then perhaps it might be safer to go into confidential session.
Got all of it. Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, go for it. We've passed it, so we'll go completely in.